Today is the second idtalks of this spring, and today we are going to be talking about climate change anxiety. If climate change and environment make young people take the streets, these global challenges obviously also have an impact on young people's mental health and well-being. Today, we will be discussing the kind of approaches help young people to address their climate change worries, what can promote climate resilience at an individual and societal levels. And we will discuss the role of youth work to tackle climate change anxiety. And the best person ever to talk about these topics with is Anna from Austria. She is working as an ecological psychologist and eco-consultant since quite some years. She studied psychology in University of Graz and just finished her second master's on global studies focused on climate change. She is also helping individuals and organizations to change their behaviors regarding climate and environment protection issues, with a focus on psychological aspects such as changing habits, motivation, and mindset. I would not be able to tell more about Anna because there is so much, but I would like to now pass Anna the floor for introducing herself and starting the presentation.
We always have this quote at the Psychologists for Future: climate change is a psychological crisis, whatever else it is. And what does climate crisis really has to do with psychology? That's a good question. Psychology is the science of human experience and behavior. There is a double effect, an interactive effect to climate and psychology, because the climate crisis affects people. Like I will go into this topic deeper in the next slides, but like heat waves or catastrophic weather disasters has an effect on people, but also on the other way around, human behavior is also affecting the climate crisis. And that's what environmental psychology is. We are researching about those interactive effects. To our agenda today, we have the topic climate emotions and specifically climate anxiety. After that, we will talk about climate resilience and how you can strengthen your own climate resilience, but also the resilience of young people you work with. And to wrap it up, at the end, we will talk about how to talk to young people about their emotions and what can you do for them. I'm from Austria, and so I wanted to show this graph. You maybe know it from your country or the global one, which is increasing the temperature. You can see also in red the Austria temperature and the average, of course. And I wanted to show you this because in Austria the temperature is rising much more faster than global. And that's because it's a landlocked country and we have no direct connection to the sea, and the sea has a balancing role in climate change. So I just wanted to show you that. And here it's a bit a simpler picture of it globally. But I think you all know that climate change exists, and it's driven by humans and by greenhouse gas emissions we produce. But this graphic is mostly not as well known as the others. And it's concerning tipping points, and it was really an eye-opening graphic to me, because here you can see that Earth's climate had already just 6 changes in the last 600,000 years, from ice ages to warmer periods like the interglacial Holocene we have now. And you see in gray the temperature limit that should not be exceeded, and science says it is around 1.5 or 2 degrees, global average. And if we exceed this limit, then we will fall into a hot of Earth scenario, and it will cause a lot of irreversible processes like the ice albedo feedback. You have probably heard from it, or the melting of the polar ice caps, the thawing of permafrost soils. Those are all semi-stable states in the climate, in our climate system. And if we exceed this tipping points, there's no going back. And that was really shocking to me, and then really eye-opening graphic for me. So I wanted to show it to you. And now we start into a small interaction. I have prepared a question for you because this information is very depressing when you see that not so many things change lately in reducing the greenhouse gases. Yeah, the most of you said, or nearly equally sad and scared is the most clicked answer. Nobody's cheerful, and some are furious, of course. I also know this because I'm working also at the Psychologists for Future, and we have a lot to do with climate emotions. So furious is often a big topic, and also anxiety, but also sadness, like for the loss of environment. Okay, and then I will go to the second slide. Sad is definitely the most clicked answer, and then scared. And the second slide, I hope you can already vote for it. Yeah. How strong is your climate anxiety then? And it gives also me a good view over the audience, to which people I'm talking. That is also nice for me to see. And I like to do my own statistics because I'm a psychologist, and we learned a lot of statistics in our university. Yeah, I can tell you with this, you are not alone, definitely. There are many people who have climate emotions or feel climate anxiety. I first want to tell you about climate emotions. There is anxiety. They are very different. There are many emotions in this topic. So some people feel sad, like you also clicked, or despair. The powerlessness is also a theme. Anger, guilt, and shame comes often up when we are counseling at the Psychologists for Future with activists, for example. What are now the psychological consequences of the climate crisis? Pathological consequences of the climate crisis are very rare or not well researched yet. We're not sure. But there are some studies, and you can find all references at the end of my presentation so you can search yourself for them. There are effects of extreme weather events on mental health, for example, and after climate catastrophes like hurricanes, floods caused by heavy rain, or heat waves, studies show that you can find an increase in PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and even domestic violence. Those are natural disasters which are climate related. With natural disasters which are not climate related, like earthquakes, tsunamis, or volcanic eruptions, you can find nearly the same outcomes. Heat is also a very important topic, because those which suffer the most or the groups which are especially vulnerable are mental ill people or elderly people. But now to climate anxiety, it is very important to say that climate anxiety is a non-pathological consequence. So it is not a recognized mental disorder. It is not in the ECD's 10 manual, in the That's the diagnostic, the DSM, you know, maybe in America, is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And climate anxiety is not in there because it is a appropriate and meaningful emotional response to a real threat. The definition of climate anxiety is difficult feelings because of the ecological crisis, or also the concern, fear of the current climate crisis and its possible consequences. And there's another term, you've maybe heard of it, solastalgia. It is called the pain because of environmental loss, and it causes also mental and physical stress. So it is very important to say that climate anxiety is not a recognized mental disorder, but sometimes with people who deal a lot with the climate crisis, like activists or others, it may progress to depression or an anxiety disorder. What can help to live with your climate anxiety is sharing your emotions with others and getting involved. And sometimes climate anxiety, but more often climate anger can also be a motivator to do something about it, to go on demonstrations, to be with other people and try to do something against it. So fury is more motivating than fear for climate relevant action. I want also to show you a very big survey on climate anxiety so that you can see you're not alone with it. And also the young people you're maybe taking care of are also not alone with it. In this survey, 10,000 young people between the age of 16 and 25 from 10 different countries were interviewed, and the results showed, no, they were not interviewed, they became a questionnaire. And the results show that 75% agree with the statement, the future is scary. Also 6 out of 10 people are very or extremely concerned about the climate crisis, and 2/3 feel anxious or sad. I think we here in our statistic had nearly the same outcome. Of course, we are not so many people, but it shows the same outcome, I think. 4 out of 10 people are undecided about having children due to the climate crisis. And I really, that was really, a surprise to me, because the reduced desire to have children is very common in young people around the world now because of the different crises we live in. And the last result is that 67% feel governments are not protecting the planet or doing too little. So what happens if you read, for example, threatening information? This threatening information triggers stress. There's also a study from an Austrian environmental psychologist, Ul, Klackel, Hansen and Jonas, and I want to tell you about this study short. They gave people newspapers to read climate crisis information, and the result was, and they looked if the people will change their behavior, or they asked them, now you read this, now you know about climate crisis, will you now change your behavior and do something more positive to protect the climate? And the result was that reading climate crisis information had no, or sometimes even the opposite effect on climate friendly behavior. It leads to increased ethnocentrism, for example. So we upgrade our own cultural group and we are devaluing foreign cultural groups. So maybe we in Austria, some people in Austria say in discussions, yeah, what can we do? We are such a small country. China, India, those are the big polluters, or also the United States. What can we do? They have to change something. And that's exactly ethnocentrism. So we are upgrading our own cultural group and devaluing foreign cultural groups, which is really not okay, because everybody has to contribute to do something about climate change, and Austria also can contribute, of course, and should do that. But on the individual level, how is this stress? What comes out of this stress? So if we feel stress, there are three options. You probably heard of fight or flight reaction. This you maybe know from evolution. When a tiger is in front of your place where you live, then you could, like the people who lived earlier, could run or fight that. And because when we feel stressed, we have an adrenaline rush in stressful situations, and that provides energy for survival, ensuring behavior. But there's also another possibility. There's also freeze. And some people just freeze, and they feel like, I can't do anything on my own anyway. And yeah, they just don't know what to do. And sometimes that also happens when you give them very much information about climate crisis. Like sometimes in the media, there's so many negative things we read, and that often leads to this freezing effect. So it is Uhl, Klackle, and Hansen and Jonas in this study promotes that if you give climate crisis information, you should link it with concrete possibilities to change something. So what can you change in your daily behavior, for example? Or how can you put pressure on politicians to change something, what would be really important also? And you as youth workers or teachers, you can change these beliefs with your students or the people you work with. You can try to tell them you can achieve a lot through your own actions, and also get other people to rethink, because sometimes or very often it leads to a domino effect. So I change something, I tell someone about it, the person tells another one, and everybody maybe stops flying around for fun, for holidays in a jet, or I don't know, eats less meat or other things, what you can change. Now I want to define the term climate resilience, because that's what we want to be, climate resilient. Resilience on its own, it's just psychological resistance, so the ability to survive difficult life situations without lasting impairment. But in climate resilience, there's a little bit more. It is not only the ability to survive these difficult situations, but also to use them as an opportunity for development. So and on different levels as well. So climate resilience is the psychological ability to cope with stress caused by the climate crisis, and on these different levels, on the cognitive, emotionally, interpersonal, and action-oriented level, and to use also the process as an opportunity for development. How concretely can you strengthen now your own climate resilience, or also the climate resilience of young people you work with? You know, it's really not so difficult and not so scientific. It's not rocket science to strengthen your climate resilience. It's really very easy, but I think sometimes we have to focus on the basics. It's, for example, just structure your day good, or tell the young people to structure the day in a healthy way, like rest and activity phases, because that leads to more emotional stability. Also, social contacts are important. Sport and exercise, because that reduces stress, improves the mood and the sleep. Time for enjoyment, find things you like to do, hobbies, enjoy it, feel fun again, feel pleasure and relaxation. Nature is also a very good tool to calm down, to relax. Do meaningful things like voluntary work, or go to demos, or find a group, for future group. There are nearly for every one for future group already. So I'm at the Psychologists for Future, but there are Parents for Future, Teachers for Future, Coaches for Future, Architects for Future. I think there are so many, and you can participate there. You can go to demonstrations. You can really put pressure on the politicians to change the system. Then, of course, sleep, get enough sleep, because sometimes activists, they are 24/7 on the phone and read climate crisis information and get really stressed out, and just to really take time, set the timer, or say, okay, from 20 p.m. I'm without my phone and I have time for myself, and go to sleep early, or yeah, something that does you good. Distancing oneself from worries is also an important tool. Self-conquest, self-awareness, and self-compassion. Yes, you can find more information to climate resilience if you're very interested on the homepage of the Psychologists for Future. Now I want to move on. Hope through action, is that really possible? Yeah, I think climate crisis is really the greatest challenge of mankind. And some people say, if only one becomes vegan or stops flying, that doesn't help, does it? But I think really it does. And there are also studies about this. Virtually, it is impossible to live climate neutrally, because everything we use in our Western society, the infrastructure causes greenhouse gases, like production, transport, and etc. So really large systems have to change, how we are mobile, where the electricity comes from, how we heat, agriculture, factories, waste. And that's the task of politics. But however, in order for politics to change something, we need each individual to change their behavior, because that would be a means to an end. You know, politicians want to get re-elected and only change things when they perceive a rethinking in the population, in the society. So I think it needs both. It needs the bottom-up effect and also the top-down effect to change something and to protect our climate. Although it is important to know for you when you work with young children, that climate crisis is often individualized. So the responsible is often passed on to the consumers. And I don't know if you knew that, but BP, a big oil concern, invented the carbon footprint just to distract from their own carbon footprint. So everyone can go online and type in their own greenhouse gas emissions and look how they can reduce it. But it would be better if, like, big companies like BP, Shell, and others do something about it, you know. And it was really invented by them to distract. The climate crisis is really not a personal problem, but a system and a structural problem. As long as flights are that cheap and much faster than the train, it will not change, because not everybody can buy a more expensive train ticket, and not everybody has so much time to use the train. But there are things politicians need to change, like riding a bike when there aren't enough bike lanes is also too dangerous sometimes. And actors in politics and business are here really in demand. And I linked an article for you, Discourses of Climate Delay, how to talk about climate change without doing anything about it. And I found this very interesting, but it would be too much to tell you about this now as well. So to wrap it up at the end, what can you really do to help young people with their climate anxiety? Try to understand them. we have at the Psychologists for Future a rule. So resist the writing reflex at first, because sometimes when somebody comes to you and tells you how anxious she or he is, we are tempted to say, oh, everything will be all right, it's not so bad. Just resist this reaction, because it really is bad, and they will not find themselves understood in their problems if you say that. The second thing is understand the motivation of the conversation partner. So what's their personal motivation about protecting the climate, and what do they already do, and are they maybe not able to carry the burden because they are doing too much and looking to not so good on themselves. Maybe they sleep too less, they don't get resting times, they are too much into worrying. Check that out. Then listen to your convo partner. Listening is very important, and at the end empower them to move on, to be active, but to also preserve time for themselves and to look for their health. So take their feelings seriously is very important. Be authentic in what you say, because only if you're authentic, there can be a connection, and they can feel that they are understood. Show real concern, and try to help as you can. Some just need a shoulder to cry on, or someone to talk. You can also go on a demo with them, or show your real support. To the conversation point, and this is nearly my last slide. The one I have then the presentation is over. So get into a conversation. Questions you can ask young people are, how do you feel about climate change? Which climate emotions do you feel? How strong are these feelings? What triggers these feelings? How do you deal with climate emotions? And is this approach effective? So come into also reflection. And what else do you think could help you? And maybe you also tell them about your own climate emotions, because that also provides a connection. And tell them about your own fears and what do you do about it, because then it would be a good conversation for both of you. What can you do if they feel climate anxiety? So this is a short summary of what I said before. Become active, because that's really the key. Self-efficacy is also the key to feel that oneself can do something, and you burst out of this feeling so small and like I cannot do anything about it because climate change is so big. But self-efficacy is really the key. Take small, continuous steps. Empower them to join a group, a future group, and work together there with other people, because together one can achieve more, and they have the feeling of collective effectiveness, and you feel like together they can achieve something. And focus on positive changes and benefits. For example, if you don't use the car every day, you can be mobile without noise and exhaust gases, and you have fewer dependencies. And of course, strengthen the climate resilience of your young people you work with, like I said before. Yeah, thank you for your attention. I already I just have this slide prepared. We at the Psychologists for Future Austria have free consultation, and we then look for psychologists or psychotherapists who can help. And you can contact us under the following mail address. Yeah, thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion and to the questions.
So there are two questions, or actually even three questions from Arisa from Spain and Thailand. So first of all, Arisa is wondering how to empower people to change their behaviors, especially people from working class and low income, because you were saying in one of your slides recently that these behavioral changes sometimes are quite costly. Second, how can we find sustainable ways of living, not falling into green capitalism? And how can we make people listen to this problem and protect ourselves from being rejected? So maybe if you could take these 3 questions, and then I will bring some more to your attention.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think not everything will be possible to do, with free will. So there needs to be some politics have to really create truth of costs. So if flights are so cheap, not everybody will take the train, because not everybody it's possible. But if the politics change, like the taxes on kerosene, for example, then the flights will be more expensive. Train maybe can get subsidized and will be cheaper. And then people also from working class can change their behavior, and would be possible to do something about it. But I think it's not them who cause the most emissions, because we know that rich people are causing a lot more emissions than poor people. So I think we should not focus on the working class. Sometimes we think, yeah, they are the consumers, and they buy many things that are not really necessary, but the real polluters are definitely the rich ones, and maybe we should focus on them. And I think politics have the key to change this, and to really take environmental costs into the few, so yeah, that people can really, if they buy something, the environmental costs will be included already. That's my opinion. Yes. And I think, can you tell me the second and the third?
Second question was about finding ways for sustainable living without falling into green capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
What can we do? And maybe also link it a little with other questions that we have right now, because they're coming quite much in the same direction. How to help young people to detect and avoid greenwashing?
Yeah, that's a big topic. Greenwashing is really a big topic. I think we have to change our mindsets, because we are living in we have to fulfill a mindset shift. We are living in a scarcity mindset. So we think we have too less of this and too less of that. But we have to go into an abundance mindset. We have to change our thinking about what is important in life. You have to think really important is maybe a good conversation, to live safety, to have the freedom to work in a fulfilling job, and not like now these status symbols we have, like who flies on holiday somewhere, or who drives the biggest car, or I don't know. We have to really change the mindset, and not consume so many things, but to be more thankful for those things we already have. That's I think if we come to such a societal shift, there's also a tipping point in society, and if we reach this tipping point, then it will go really fast, that other people also will change their behavior, and change their thinking, and get into this mindset shift.
Our colleague Gael here is mentioning that, for example, one of these policy changes that could be offered is already offered by European Commission for the youth programs, Erasmus Plus and Solidarity Corps, extra funding for green travel and this kind of incentives for young people to make greener choices. Here we have two more questions that I would like to bring to your attention, and then later maybe we can continue discussion in smaller groups. One question is how can individuals in developing countries contribute to solve this issue? And the other one is not very much in the same line, but maybe something you could take together as two questions jointly. What about people who don't have climate anxiety? They are looking at the numbers and thinking, no, not my problem. How can we make them realize the urgency of the problem without being these bad persons who are creating their anxiety? What can we do and how can we approach this?
I think information and information that is for everybody visible is very important, because when they have enough information, I think maybe nearly everybody would feel anxiety. And I don't think it's good to say, oh, it's not so bad, don't be anxious about it. First, you have to tickle these emotions, and then people will be able or will be more motivated to change their behavior. First, they have to really understand what climate change is about and how we are all affected by it, because yeah, it has really big effects on the society, on the people, on water, on agriculture, on everything. And what was the the first thing you said?
First,
I cannot hear you.
The first question?
Yeah.
Or in the last row.
Yeah.
Yes, it was about people in developing countries.
People in developing countries, how can they
contribute? How can they contribute in solving the issues?
I think really we need a movement, and Fridays for Future created or began this movement. And if you want to contribute, then search for a Fridays for Future group in your region and go there to the meetings and look how, because they have a big overview, and look how you can contribute to them. And maybe if you have no Fridays for Future group, many things are online now today, and you can join online, or also invent your own or create your own group with friends in your region. That would also be good.
Hi, this is Josh, reporting live from Norway. Yeah, we had some nice discussion basically around greenwashing. We thought that was a very good thing to bring up in your talk, Anna, and we were just kind of relating a few different stories from our home countries and where we work about the struggles of greenwashing. Yeah, it's definitely like a difficult thing, especially when it comes to funding, learning, where do you draw the line and accepting funding and putting for example, your organization's logo on an organization that wants to support you, but at the same time, maybe they're using you to greenwash themselves. Yeah, stuff like that. So it's a really good topic to bring up, and probably a lot overlooked, especially in like mainstream like education.
Yes, so hello everyone from Armenia. In our group, we talk mainly about the problem of how to create awareness in countries, because we came from a lot of different countries where the climate change movement or the Fridays for Future movement in general hasn't really picked up or isn't really that prominent, as while Fridays for Future is an international movement, it's more Western based in the Northern Hemisphere. And we talked about how to best create awareness, and then also ask ourselves how to do this without, this was also discussed in the chat before, without creating this alarmism and just shocking people into a panic, because that really doesn't help anyone. But also trying to wake them up, or not really wake them up, but bring them to the reality that climate change, or rather the climate crisis, is a real problem, and which is going to affect everyone, especially in the countries in the Southern Hemisphere. And we were wondering and talking about and asking ourselves, what is the best way to do that through social media and especially through youngsters, because they can then kind of facilitate this through the older generations and kind of pulling them with them, creating awareness, and through a society, like a change of mind in the society. But it's a difficult topic to address to people who had and have to deal with problems like, how am I going to get bread the next few days, or how am I going to feed my kids the next days?
So Josh, to the greenwashing theme, that's a really big topic. I think, yeah, every company who has a seal or does something for bigger economic workers or so, they have to decide on their own if they want to give their logo to them. But for seals, if you're an individual and you want to check if a seal is really good or it's just greenwashing, there are a lot of apps which do that. Or if you have time, I think it would be also important to check for seals and search for them in the internet, because sometimes there are so many seals, like on clothes, for example, and not every seal is very good, and so you can see if it is just greenwashing, and don't be blinded by advertisements. I think that is also very important, because nearly everybody is advertising their things, and of course they want to be sustainable and look sustainable to the audience, but often they are not. And yeah, to really check the seals, and maybe also use apps. They explain the seals and what the seals cover, to not fall into greenwashing. I think that's very important, and to sensibilize young people also to do that the same. And for the second question, that Fridays for Future is not so based in or more based in Western countries. I think what you can do then is to connect to, I don't know, Fridays for Future Germany or Fridays for Future Austria or other countries you are maybe related with, because Niels, I see Germany and Armenia in your name, so maybe you have friends there, or can put together something, because you if you do everything on your own and have to build this structure completely new on your own, it's more difficult. And so you can maybe talk to them and get tips how to maybe create a new Fridays for Future group in your country, and what to think about when you do that, and to create more awareness with people in your country. I think it really needs low threshold events, so everybody can go there and get the information, and you can invite experts to talk about climate change. Maybe you have meteorologists or even some university professors are often able to do this pro bono, and just hold a speech at the event to create more awareness in the country. They do that sometimes and have really fun, and like to do that. So it's always better to get experts to talk to people, because when you are talking in your environment, like with your family, with your friends, there is also the emotional part of it, and it's very difficult for you to speak to them on a rational level. You know, I did it myself with my parents, and it was really difficult, and we got into fights because of some things, and because I see things different than my father maybe. But if you get people from externally, like experts, they can talk better about it, and there is not this emotional factor within.
Thank you very much, Anna. We have another hand. Please, Vaya, you have the floor. In the meantime, thank you everybody for sharing the resources and the links in the chat. Please continue doing so. Vaya, you have the floor for your question or your comment.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Anna, kudos to you for keeping it cool in the beginning of your presentation with all of this that happened. I would like to share with you our conversation in the room that we had with a few people there about the helplessness. Yeah, this word. That means that we have no hope, more or less, or we feel like we cannot do anything, that we feel very overwhelmed of how to solve climate change. Though we talked about the reducing meat and fish, vegan, vegetarian, stuff like that. But we pointed out that it looks like for some people this choice is it looks like it's like a show-off. So a lot of people receive like this kind of comments that you do this, you don't eat meat, and they're like making fun of you. So you feel very you know how to respond, but you know that some people, they want to know why you're doing it, because you believe you help by reducing your meat and fish and everything. But there are some people that they ask just because they want to make fun, or they want to hurt you. And then a conversation starts that leads sometimes nowhere. So we were talking about this, and it was nice.
Thank you very much, Vaya. We have one more hand, and I think we could also now listen to Felipe from Portugal. And then, Anna, you could address both questions, comments together. Please, Felipe.
Hello, and thank you. Hello, everyone. So in our group, it was a very quick conversation, but we reflect about how heavy can be individual responsibility with youngsters and also adults. How can this affect our mental health? Because we think we felt responsible for about the small actions that lead to climate change. And sometimes someone said that we feel cynical because actually individually we know that we don't do all the things that we talk about and we should do it. So how heavy can this be to understand my responsibility? And probably with the youngsters, they feel this in a heavy way, and they actually don't have so much responsibility because the people that pollute more, as we were saying, are the rich people. And about this reflection, maybe a question: how can we address this working with young people, talking about awareness, but also give the right importance about this topic in order for them don't feel responsible or cynical? Yeah, and it was sorry group if it was not very clear about the conversation, but in general it was this. Thank you.
So to the first question, when you say that some people are not recognizing or are not understanding why you eat not so much meat or fish, then maybe try to explain. But if you feel that the discussion doesn't lead anywhere and they are not really interested in the topic, but only want to feel you bad, that you feel bad, or want to criticize you, then I would say save your energy, and you don't have to discuss it with people. They won't understand, because when the people decide in the first place that they are critical against climate change, and then you won't change their mindset, and it's just, yeah, I would say save your energy, and maybe you find new people, friends who think alike, and connect to them and talk to them about your new habits and how it feels to live vegetarian or vegan. And and I often say pessimists should step out of the way of optimists, because we can change something. We can protect our climate. Every single step counts, in my opinion. And if somebody always says, oh, we are not going to make it, or it's too difficult, emissions are even rising, and we will not make it, then I just say, then step out of the way. We optimists, we are going to do it, and we have the power, and we will change things. And yeah, I'm really optimistic, and I think we'll do it together, and there will be a change, and there has to be a change. And for the second question, how can you talk to young people so that they won't feel bad or cynical or responsible for all the things? I would tell them the truth. They are not, no one individual is really responsible for the big topic of climate change, but it's the politics, it's the rich people, and the economics, of course. And just talk about this. It's not about who is to blame for that and that. We have to look into the future, and we have to change now things. We cannot look the whole time into the past and think about, oh, what we have should have done differently. We have to look into the future and take steps and work through the 1.5 or 2 degree limit, and not reflect so much on the past, I think.
Here we have some pieces of the talk that Anna just shared with us. Super interesting, super pleasant to graphically record. There is a very specific data and very specific also recommendations on how we as educators or youth workers can actually deal or approach this topic with the young people with whom we work. So the visual will still be enriched with the last additions and comments that we had in the last part of the session, but it will be also available later on with the email and the slides as well.
Thank you very much, Olaja. You keep surprising us every time with yet another piece of art. Thank you very much. As we are approaching the end of today's ID talk, I would like to pass the floor back to Anna to say some concluding remarks before we call the day. Please, Anna.
Thanks a lot, Olaja, for the beautiful piece you have drawn. It's really so good. I really like also the picture of myself at the top. Thanks a lot. You're really an artist, I have to say. To finally finish up this session, I really liked to discuss the topic with you. It gives me good feelings, because so many people are interested in the topic and want to change their behavior. And I really think we can look positive into the future if we all work together, and if we do small steps every day, change small things and talk about it in a positive way. I'm sure we will get the curve and protect our climate in a good way, and we'll get rid of this anxiety we all have, I think. Thank you very much for listening, and have a nice day.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much to our audience that is following us here on Zoom online. We will see each other in 2 weeks from now on second Wednesday, 1 p.m. Central European Time. We will be talking next time about social media addiction. So please come back to us. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.